Imagine a world where Rome never fell, where the Colosseum still thundered with the roar of tens of thousands, not as a broken relic of the past, but as the beating heart of a living superpower. A world where the Tiber flowed through a metropolis of gleaming marble and glass, where senators debated policy not in dusty history books, but in living chambers of global influence. A world without a dark age. A world without the long sleep of science. A world shaped utterly and irrevocably by the iron will of an empire that refused to die. Forget everything you know about history. In this alternate reality, the Roman Empire survives for 2,000 more years, evolving, expanding, and imprinting its identity on every corner of the globe. What would that world look like? What would change? What would remain the same? Let us journey into a world where Roma et an eternal Rome was not a poetic dream, but a political, cultural, and technological megaforce that shaped the very future of humanity. The Eternal City. A glimpse back. Before imagining what Rome could have become, we must return to what it truly was. At its height, the Roman Empire stretched from the windswept moors of northern Britain to the deserts of Arabia. From the Atlantic shores of Iberia to the fertile Nile Valley, over 60 to 70 million people lived under Roman authority, connected by over 400,000 kilometers of roads, intricate, aqueducts, and one of the most sophisticated bureaucracies the ancient world had ever known. Yet history teaches us that the empire fell. It fractured, declined, and gave way to feudal kingdoms and fragmented cultures. The great cities dimmed. Literacy plummeted. Central authority splintered. But what if this narrative, this tragic decline ever occurred? Alternate divergence point. The crisis averted. To imagine an eternal Rome, historians usually point to one essential change. The empire must survive the internal crises of the 3rd, 5th centuries. This requires several key shifts, one avoiding the crisis of the 3rd century. Perhaps a stronger succession system emerges, preventing rapid turnover of emperors. Perhaps the economy stabilizes through meaningful reforms earlier than Diocletian's reign. Perhaps regional governors are granted more autonomy, reducing rebellion pressures to a successful east-west power alignment. Instead of fracturing into eastern and western halves, the empire reforms itself into a federated system where provinces retain cultural autonomy, but share military, economic, and administrative unity. 3. Religion as a unifying force. Not a source of schism. Christianity might spread but without causing political fractures or suppressing classical learning. Paganism might remain influential, leading to a diverse, syncretic, religious landscape. For a continued long-term economic growth, land reforms, technological curiosity, and bureaucratic expansion support an early version of industrial growth centuries before our timeline. With these changes, none of them impossible, the Roman Empire doesn't fall. It evolves, and in evolving, it becomes something far greater, Secunda and Pax Romana, reborn. Society and governance in an eternal Rome. Imagine an empire that lasts not just centuries, but millennia. How would its culture and government transform? What would daily life look like for its citizens? Let's begin with the heart of Roman civilization, its laws, administration, and political identity. Government, the birth of a Roman United Nations. Rome's greatest strength was never just its armies, it was its bureaucracy. In a world where Rome endures, Rome abandons absolute autocracy early. Over time, emperors transition from divine monarchs to powerful yet constitutionally bound figures. The Senate is reformed into a true representative body. Local provincial councils grow into powerful regional parliaments. The empire becomes a multinational federation. Imagine Rome divided into semi-autonomous political regions. Provincia Italia, Britannia Magna, Aegyptus, Gallia, Hispania, Asia, Africana. These regions possess their own assemblies, civil services, and regional courts, but all remain tied to a centralized consilium imperi, aprutum. This council coordinates foreign policy, trade, defense, and civil rights across the empire. Instead of falling apart, Rome becomes more inclusive. Universal citizenship arrives early and fully. By the 4th century, Roman citizenship already expanded dramatically. In our alternate timeline, this policy accelerates. By the 6th century, every resident is a full Roman citizen. No more second-class provincial subjects. No more conquered peoples. Instead, Rome becomes a global identity, a shared citizenship that transcends ethnicity. Society. A world without feudalism. One of the most profound changes. Europe never enters feudalism. Why? Because feudalism emerged from collapsing central authority, isolated communities, disintegrated trade networks, and declining literacy. Under an eternal Rome, the state remains strong. So, feudal lords never rise. Land isn't controlled by local warlords, but administered by state agencies, leased to farmers, and regulated through urban-based bureaucracies. Large Roman cities never fall into ruin. Urbanization expands rather than contracts. By our modern age, Roman cities might resemble a blend of New York's energy, Tokyo's efficiency, Istanbul's historical continuity, and Rome's architectural grandeur. We might see continuous urban development for 2,000 years. Religion, a very different Christian world, or none at all. In our timeline, Christianity became Rome's state religion, but in an eternal Rome, several alternate paths emerge. Possibility A. A syncretic Roman religion dominates. Roman polytheism, Christian ethics, Greek philosophy, Egyptian mysticism, and Persian dualism into an evolved, unified religious system. Possibility B. Christianity develops without suppressing pagan scholarship. The faith coexists peacefully with classical scientific inquiry. No burning of libraries, no ban on pagan texts. Instead, theologians and philosophers share academic space. Possibility C. Rome becomes religiously tolerant. Imperial policy leads to a multi-faith empire resembling modern secular democracies. Religion becomes personal, not political. 3. Innovation unleashed. Technology and science. Without the Dark Ages, here lies the most explosive difference. In our timeline, the fall of Rome triggered massive loss of scientific knowledge, collapse of education systems, decline in engineering, economic regression, and halted technological progress. But in a world where Rome thrives, there is no 1,000-year pause. There is no dark age. Innovation never stops. Let's explore what this means. Infrastructure, mastery of roads, aqueducts, energy. Roman engineering already surpassed much of medieval Europe. With continued investment, Rome might develop steam power 1,000 years early. In the 1st century, Hero of Alexandria invented a primitive steam turbine. The empire was technologically close to discovering industrial steam power. With continuous scholarly support, Rome might reach steam engines by 300 to 400 AD, railroads by 600 to 700 AD, mechanized industry by 800 to 900 AD. Europe industrializes a millennium early. Medicine, ancient knowledge meets continuous research, without medieval superstition replacing classical medicine. Anatomists continue scientific dissection. Hospitals expand across provinces. Pharmaceuticals evolve through Greek-Egyptian traditions. Hygiene improves thanks to aqueduct expansion. Life expectancy increases significantly by the medieval period. Rome likely invents early vaccinations, advanced surgical instruments, chemical medicine centuries before modernity, and standardized public health systems. Astronomy and mathematics, a scientific renaissance, minus 1,000 years early. Greek mathematics plus Roman engineering equals groundbreaking innovation. Continuous funding for scholars leads to heliocentric models by 500 AD. Telescopes by 700 AD, calculus by 900 AD, planetary science by 1100 AD, advanced navigation by 1200 AD. By the time our world reached the Renaissance, Rome might already be exploring the stars. Automation, machines, and possibly early flight. Roman interest in gears, levers, and water power could evolve into mechanical clocks by 400 AD. Analog computers standardized by 600 AD. Printing presses by 700 AD. Proto-airships, or gliders, by 900 to 1000 AD. Powered flight by 1200 to 1300 AD. By the year 1500, the Roman Empire might have skyscraper-like structures, electricity, maritime empires across oceans, global communication systems, and advanced weapons. Humanity leaps forward dramatically faster. IV. Cultural colossus. Art, language, and philosophy in an eternal Rome. Rome wasn't just power, it was culture. And in a world where it never falls, the cultural impact is enormous. Latin Dei, loa lingua franca. Today, English dominates because of British imperial influence. In an eternal Rome, Latin becomes the world's premier global language. Regional dialects evolve into modern languages like our Romance family. But Imperial Latin remains the standardized international speech. A business meeting in Tokyo? Latin. A research paper in Brazil? Latin. Global diplomacy? Latin. It becomes what English is today, multiplied by centuries of continuity. Art? 2,000 years of continuous Roman aesthetics. Imagine Roman sculpture evolving toward hyper-realistic styles. Mosaics becoming complex, digital-like patterns. Classical architecture merging with steel, glass, and concrete. Amphitheaters upgraded into massive entertainment stadiums. Aqueduct aesthetics integrated into modern urban design. By the Renaissance, which in this timeline never needs a rebirth. Art is already far beyond anything we know because it never died. Philosophy. A continuous line from Plato to modernity. Instead of rediscovering Greek philosophy in the 12th century, Rome advances Stoicism, develops into modern psychology, Epicureanism into early scientific naturalism, Neoplatonism into proto-metaphysics, Roman legal philosophy into advanced constitutional theory. Imagine if Cicero, Seneca, Galen, and Ptolemy each had direct lines of successors spanning 2,000 years. The intellectual leaps are colossal.